Awesome. All right, sir, how are you?
Yeah, good.
Pleasure.
Good.
So let me ask you something. You know, I see you parking that huge tour bus, and everyone, when they think Howard Jones, obviously the 80s and all that stuff comes to mind, but you've been touring rigorously well beyond the 80s and putting out material, like you're very prolific. So just talk to me about, well, why don't we stay with current right now, because you're on the road with Barenaked Ladies, and then later on with Kim Wilde. And the Barenaked Ladies and you is probably the weirdest combination of any tour I've ever heard of. So tell me about how you guys complement each other.
Now, well, I know it sounds weird because, I mean, OMD are on that tour as well.
Right.
So
it's 80s, 90s, basically.
It sounds weird, but there is, the more that we tour together, I realise there's a big connection. Because they're really into songs and they're really into the history of pop music.
Right.
And they're huge fans of music in general. So, you know, they grew up during the 80s. There was quite a big input from people like myself and from OMD.
Right.
And, you know, obviously their music is not the same, but it's song-based and, you know, melody-based, and also the lyrics are really interesting and they mean something. So that, for me, there's actually a huge connection, but it's not obvious at first.
Right, because I mean, on the surface, you think like Barenaked Ladies, right? They had a lot of hits in the 90s, and then you have OMD and you, and it's like, well, all right. Well, it crosses a huge section, so
yeah, it does.
The shows must be doing really well.
Well, it's like, you know, I think a lot of Barenaked Ladies people turn up and who are these guys, you know?
Yeah.
And they end up, you know.
Then they watch you play and they shut their mouths, right?
You suddenly start to see them warm up and start to get into it. You know? Yeah. So I'm always pleased with that.
You know, I feel like you've always been like one step ahead of everybody. Do you ever feel that way? Like, well, like for example, you release new material on your website at a time that maybe not a lot of people were doing that. You release music on, you know, podcasts and stuff like that.
I guess, yeah. I mean, I've always been looking for new ways to do things and to be inventive and not, you know, things change all the time. So if you go, oh, it's different now, I wish it was like it was in the past, that's a ridiculous attitude to have, and it's not the attitude that I put in my songs. It's like, in my songs, it's like, okay, what have I got in front of me? How can I make this work, and how can I create value from it? And so, always, like, even with technology and all that stuff, like, there's a bad side to that where people just close in and become isolated, and then, or there's a good side of it where you can, you know, have contact with people right around the world, and that's what I'm always looking for, is the sort of positive side of things.
Everyone talks about the music industry being basically crap right now, but on the flip side, isn't it more accessible to actually get your music out there, like whether it's Spotify or whatever? And I'm not going to get into how much they pay the artist, but you know, it's more accessible and more easy to find, you know, a lot of other bands and stuff.
I mean, I think again, it's the way you look at it. I mean, there's probably about a third of the amount of money now in the music business than there was just a few years ago. So that means, oh right, everyone's got to think differently. So for me, I mean, I can only sort of talk about the way that I react to it, and I think, like, what do people value now, you know, about music? They don't particularly care for an MP3 sitting on their desktop. They have no affection for that, but they still absolutely love coming to shows and to hear live music. So gear what you do towards live music, and make music that works well live, and you know, write music that does that, and get really good at putting on good shows. And in a way, that's almost like the attitude of another era. You know, when it was you were only able to hear a person if you went to see them. See, my theory is that the more effort you have to put into something, the more you can get out. Right. So, like, if you have to go to a concert, you have to be there. You have to sit for 2 hours. You have to listen. You have to be there with other people.
Keep your phones in your pockets, right? Yeah.
Although I'm fine about that. And so, you know, the more effort you put in, the more you can get out. And when people stream and have free music and all that stuff, they don't value it because they're not having to put anything in. Yeah. So, and I think that's the same for most things. So I think, you know, it's an opportunity to get things back to the live experience. Yeah. That's what I think.
And you've always been about that too. Like I remember in some of your music videos, it was always like, you're performing live. You're probably performing live to your track from the studio, but like you were still doing that. You put out a couple of live albums, so you were really always about the live performance, and the studio was just kind of part of that, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think I used to put more emphasis on the studio, but now when I'm in the studio working on things, I'm thinking, how is this going to work when I take it to the stage? And I think right at the beginning, that sort of thinking, because then that influences how you write and the tempos you write and the structure of the album. Yeah, so it has changed, and I think you don't have to spend so much time in the studio because you spend 2 years making a record. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, everyone forgets about you in 2 years.
Yeah. You drop a single, you hit the road, right? Or you drop an EP and you hit the road, or whatever. That's how it is now.
Yeah.
Talk to me. I want to jump to the '80s. I'm a child of the '80s, right? So I grew up listening to you, right? I grew up in the MTV era, and I feel like the '80s are totally crapped on. And I listen to music now, and I hear nothing but '80s kind of, especially like from where you were coming from, like the synth pop. There's this subtle synth pop movement, at least right now, in a lot of music that's so prevalent that wouldn't exist without artists like you. I mean, do you feel that?
Well, I mean, I suppose when we started out, we were just trying to do something different because we were young and we, all these new gadgets and synths and drum machines, and so we just used that to make music that didn't sound like anyone else. I think that when you are trying to sound like another era, I don't think that's necessarily a great thing. I mean, really like a new young generation should be like, making music that their parents hate. You know what I mean? And not something your parents just love.
Right.
Although maybe that's just a bit of a cliche in itself now. But I always like to encourage people to like strike out on their own and like do something different, because that create an identity for yourself. That's all that we did. Now, if people want to copy or be influenced by that, like I was influenced by people like Keith Emerson and Peter Gabriel and those bands that I didn't end up making music like them, but I got influenced by their spirit,
Yeah.
So yeah, but the 80s is definitely, after a very long time being put in a dark cupboard somewhere, people suddenly go, oh, actually the 80s was really amazing.
Right,
and
it was good music.
It was really good. And a huge mix of genres and all coexisting together.
I think they connect the style, which was terrible, with the music a lot of times, and just look at this style as being cheesy. You're guilty of that. But the style then looked great, right? But I think that they mix the style with the music, and that's a mistake. Because if you just listen for the music, your songs are still on the radio. So I think people wrongly.
I think style. A lot of those fashions are coming back.
Yeah.
And they will. It recycles all the time.
Yeah.
I think the thing about the 80s is it was different from the 2 previous decades because we had MTV, we had visual, so you had to think visually as well. So you weren't just about music, you were about image and style, fashion. I think I loved that. I still am. I'm still totally into all those things.
Yeah.
And I think it's a thing. It's a package of things, and that's one of the reasons why it was so great, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And also, it's breaking the old molds of rock and roll as well, where he had sort of a bit sort of macho, long hair, and guitars, and got rid of all that, and had a very different approach. So that was good. It shook it all up, and I think now people recognise that a bit more.
Yeah. It's not just a novelty. I feel for a while it was a novelty, like they package every 80s star possible, throw them on the road together. Now I really feel like it's getting appreciated.
Well,
finally.
I don't know. It's always, who knows?
It's
I mean, you can't. I just can't think about it too much. I just think, I just do what I do. I keep trying to move forward and be an artist. I mean, I started in the 80s, but I'm an artist, and I will continue to do that.
You never stopped.
No.
Yeah. Last question. So I have a 1.5-year-old at home. Do you
Yeah.
have any words of wisdom if, whenever he's able to understand fully on YouTube, words? You have any words of wisdom to share with him?
Yeah, I think, I'd say that, it's all about the way you look at it. So if you choose to get something out of something, you will. If you decide this isn't going to work, it's not going to work. If you choose to make things work, then you will. So it's all about the way we individually look at it.
Right.
You've got a choice. And I'm trying to remember that every day. And then you'll be fine. You'll be fine then, because everything will be a challenge or something different, or something great. You can get something great out of everything.
Yeah, awesome.
Great.
It's a pleasure.
Cheers, John.
Thank you.